Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to another Team News live stream. I'm joined, as always, for Gameweek 28 by Neale. How are you doing?
Very good, Andy. Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty busy one in terms of kind of people worrying about lineups. Bit of injury news in Martial as well. So, given that it's a Friday deadline, probably good that we just get straight into it, get it done nice and quick, and people can get prepared for their lineup. So we're going to kind of skip over, at least at the start, the kind of Man City, Arsenal, basically the teams that are blanking this week. And we'll start with the teams that aren't. So let's kick off with the big one, Liverpool. Anything major there?
Not really, thankfully. We don't need any more injuries this week when we've got four teams blanking. But Klopp was mainly talking about injuries that we already knew about. So Jordan Henderson was ruled out for 3 weeks last week. He's already back running. He won't feature this weekend. He is a doubt for Tuesday as well, the FA Cup match against Chelsea. So potentially returning 29, 30. Milner's out. He could return again in the FA Cup, and Shaqiri is a bit further away from a return, I think. But nothing major to report from the big hitters like Mane, Salah, Firmino, anyone like that. So we're pretty quiet really from Liverpool.
Yeah, Milner's out. It's still good for Salah penalties. I'm hoping he gets
Yeah,
something because I've read a lot of stuff, including the captaincy article this week, that tells me I should have Mane really instead of Salah. But fingers crossed, Salah does the business. All right, moving on. Another big one, obviously playing tonight. So a lot of us. I mean, I'm thinking about bringing in a Leicester player, so I'm hoping for some early team news. But anything that we've had from press conferences and stuff for Leicester?
well, this happened 2 days ago, so there's always the risk that something's happened in the interim. But yeah, Rodgers held his press conference on Wednesday because this is the Friday night match. And just as you were ready for Leicester, indeed he is uncertain to be involved. He's been struggling with this knee problem for a little while now. He's returned to training, making great progress. Those are Rodgers' quotes. Well, I think he said pretty much the same thing last week before the Man City game, and he missed out then. So yeah, it looks like a bit of a 50-50 call. Chowdhury's back from suspension, but Rodgers was talking up Dennis Pratt, who played in this sort of defensive midfield role against Man City. And given that it's a bottom of the table team, Norwich, he might get another go there because he's offers a little bit more on the ball than the likes of Chowdhury would. So yeah, not really much in the way I mentioned for the likes of Madison and Vardy, which is good because in this game, no news is good news in terms of team news. So yeah, just Ndidi really, who's out along with some sort of peripheral players like Mendy and Amati.
And what do you think about, because you mentioned last stream, I think, about them playing kind of five at the back because of the injuries and stuff. Do you think they're going to come straight back to having Perez and Barnes in? Is that what you're going to predict?
I think so. Yeah. Well, that's what I predicted. Yeah. Rogers said that they're flexible enough to play these different systems, to play a 3-5-2 or 3-4-3, but he's generally used them for tougher games. I know he played it against Newcastle, possibly. But he's used it when he's been experimenting or resting players, for example, over Christmas, or he's been without a defensive midfield player. So I would think it'll be back into the usual shape, the sort of 4-1-4-1 or the 4-3-3, with Barnes and Perez either side of Vardy. But yeah, you never truly know with Rodgers. But as it's the evening kickoff, of course, we might get a glimmer of team news before the deadline.
Yeah, I'm hoping. I want to bring in Harvey Barnes, but I'm trying to wait to be absolutely certain. So we'll wait and see if that happens later. How about Chelsea? Any positive injury news there? No, Kante and stuff were missing out, which wasn't looking good for them.
Yeah, the opposite really. It's sort of four major blows. I mean, we already knew about Pulisic and Kante, as you say. Hudson-Odoi, we weren't sure if he was going to be back, but Lampard's belatedly ruled him out of this one. I think the biggest blow really is Tammy Abraham, who won't feature for this game. He's got this ongoing ankle problem. I think there's reports that he injured himself in the warm down against Bayern Munich in midweek, so he won't play in game week 28 against Bournemouth. So yeah, they're not sure about the time frame for a return. He's not going to be active on the training ground for a couple of days. That's what Lampard was saying, and they're going to try and get to the bottom of his ongoing problem, which I think has been an issue for a few Chelsea players this season. Pulisic being one of them, and Kante as well. He's had sort of niggling troubles all year. So yeah, down four players this weekend, including Abraham.
I might look. Maybe not a player to bring in for your FPL team because I mean transfers seem a bit precious at the moment. Worries about double game weeks and stuff. Giroud I guess is going to be the kind of main benefit
Yeah.
to this. Maybe if you're playing draft or daily fantasy or something like that might be a solid pick there. And probably the team we maybe should have started on, given that was the thumbnail picture was Martial. Has Solskjaer given us any kind of indication of time frames there? Obviously, didn't miss the game last night through injury.
Yeah, nothing in the way of time frame, unfortunately, which you don't often get from Solskjaer anyway. So yeah, this was like Wolves. Man United were in Europa League action last night, and when that happens, you often don't get a press conference on a Friday, or at least a standalone press conference. What you get instead is some embargoed quotes from immediately after the Europa League game. So there's not really a great deal to go off. I can tell you what Solskjaer said. So it was a muscle injury picked up in training. He had a fitness test before the game, which makes it sound like it's not too bad. But he's gone for a scan today. So last we heard from Solskjaer, he said he didn't know whether he's going to be able to feature against West Ham. He said he tried on Thursday to be involved against Bruges. So that makes it sound not too serious. So yeah, we're relying on the results of a scan coming out in the next 3.5 hours, I guess, before the deadline. It's not what you need. I'm a Martial owner myself. I'm going to have to make a snap decision on him. He was also talking of Greenwood's prospects of play. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that Martial's going to miss out because they both played against Watford, Greenwood on the right. But it could be that Ighalo is back up front again as he was on Thursday night. And Solskjaer said in the press conference after the Bruges game that he is ready for that game on Sunday. So, yes, some doubt over.
Yeah, I think one thing, I know it was only, for a lot of the game, it was 10 men, it was only Club Brugge, etc., etc. I've seen those comments. But I thought Ighalo actually played okay, so I don't think it would necessarily be the biggest worry to rush Martial back for this one. So it's a bit of annoyance. I guess if you don't own Fernandes, it seems like a pretty easy swap, although obviously without Martial potentially a little bit more lacking in attack and returns. I actually saw a tweet from someone, a guy called Andrew Gower. The 12 games this season is the second longest Martial's gone with a run of games. Before that, he hadn't played more than 7 in a row in the league. So we know he's injury prone. He had gone on a bit more of a longer run than normal, but this happens with him. So I don't even know if I'd be expecting him back. But let's hope we get some news before the deadline, I guess. And how about Spurs? Any news there? Obviously, they got some big long-term injuries, but anything new cropped up?
Nothing really new. Sessegnon was the latest addition to that. He missed out last weekend with a hip problem. So him, Kane, Sissoko and Son are all out. One fight's back in training. The only real line to come out of that press conference today was Lamella's not ready to start. So he hasn't really been training with the group. I think he's got this ongoing problem that he's managing. So Mourinho was saying that he could only really feature for sort of 20, 25 minutes. So I wouldn't be expecting him to start. They're already short of attacking options. That does seem to solidify the likes of Lucas Moura and Bergwijn in the starting 11.
Yeah, for sure. But we'll see if Wolves can give him a bit of a tough time. I'm hoping for a clean sheet from Wolves because I'm probably going to play Bolly. But yeah, we'll see what happens there. Okay, who else we got here? Southampton. Anything big there?
Redmond's out till after the March international break. I think we knew about that. Walker Peters is back in training after a minor calf problem, so he could be returning at right back. Apart from that, Gineppo is a doubt because of personal reasons. I think his mother passed away during the week, so he could be absent on compassionate grounds. So we could see Boufal coming in for him. And I think that's pretty much it, really, in terms of Southampton's injury news. The lack of fixture congestion. We discussed this last week for Southampton. Perhaps reduces the risk of rotation for the likes of Ings because they've got a full week to recover. And as we've said previously, Hasenhüttl's been pretty upfront about when he is going to rotate the likes of Ings and Long. So fingers crossed they've got no shocks at West Ham on Saturday. Yeah,
and I think although Ings has been kind of, I would say, a bit out of form recently in terms of actual goals, obviously still been playing well, especially with Long, so I'm not really sure they're going to change that anytime soon. Who else have we got here? We're probably almost getting ready to go just for a whip round, I think, with the teams that got left, but we'll just do one more before we do that. Crystal Palace, some defensive news there, I think.
Yeah, this could carry further down the pecking order at centre-half. Well, of course, he's an option at right back if Joel Ward ever gets injured. So Mamadou Sakho's back in training. He's been out since, I think, New Year's Day. Whether or not he's fit enough for a start, that remains to be seen, because they kept a clean sheet last week with Dan and Cahill at centre back, so might be no changes. Luka Milivojevic is back in training after illness, although Hodgson said it had debilitated him in some way, so no guarantees that he'll come straight back in. I think the other one is Jeffrey Schlupp is going to join back in training next week, which leaves James Tompkins, I think, is their only real medium-term absentee. I'm not sure when he's going to be returning, but he's not even featuring in training yet, so it might be a little while away. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it on the Palace front.
Yeah, will we just go around for the rest of them? I know there's quite a few left, but we'll get it all done, and then deadline's in a couple of hours away. So if there's anything else major, I'll do the images as you go.
Okay, yeah, it's been a quick one this week. It's Bournemouth we had this morning. Have probably given us a bit more than we're used to. He said that Ake, he was very hopeful of featuring. Now, last weekend, he said Ake would have played against Burnley had the game been on the Sunday, because they were observing a concussion protocol. So it does sound like he's going to feature. Lerma has been back in training as well. He's had a back problem, which just leaves the longer term ones like Brooks, Daniels, Danjuma, Kelly and Mepham. I think all but Daniels of that quintet are nearing a return to training. Like Mepham slightly further away, but yeah, the likes of Brooks, Lloyd Kelly, who's of course a positional rival for Rico, and Danjuma are circling in a return, I think, in the next fortnight or so. There was no mention of Diego Rico. No mention of the ex-Fulham goalkeeper either. Yeah, Diego Rico in the press conference, which you wouldn't expect. Howe gives us very little on a week-to-week basis. So in the dark about whether he's going to regain his pace, because he's benched last week with Adam Smith playing at left back against Burnley.
I saw your tweet about Eddie Howe. That did make me laugh. I kind of have a little bit of respect for him that he's just open and on it. It's very annoying for the team news stream and team news on the site, of course, but kind of made me laugh that he just, whatever, I'm not going to give you the info.
I've often said in the past, I don't know why managers give away so much information, of their own free will anyway. Maybe it's just a long-standing tradition that they share this stuff with the press. But I think if I was a manager, I'd probably be more like Howe and Guardiola and not giving stuff away.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, the opposite approach helps me, of course, in my job. But Potter is another one who can be a bit hard to read in terms of team selections, and Brighton's not really got any injury problems. They got Izquierdo, who's just permanently injured. He's the only absentee. Dale Stevens has returned to training this week, so should be fit. I think Potter said that the likes of Lamptey and McAllister could be in the squad for the first time. But it's, I think of all the teams in the division, I think they're hardest to second guess, even more so than Man City and Bournemouth. Burnley, the opposite. They're quite easy to predict. Barnes is still unavailable. Goodmanson and Loughton are both unlikely to be involved against Newcastle. Chris Wood, though, seems to be nearing a return. Dice said that he comes back into the thinking that he's fit. Like, the only doubt is whether he gets his place back from Vidra or Rodriguez, who both scored last week. But given how central Wood has been to Burnley's setup for much of this season and last, and how peripheral Vidra's been, you would expect Wood to come back in, even though Vidra scored. Never really know. Chelsea we've covered. Everton, Walcott's been past fit to play Man United. Look, Adenia is still a concern. I think Ancelotti seemed very confident last weekend that he'd be back for this, but he's only training individually as of today, so they're going to check on him tomorrow. I think he's had some blood on his calf, so not a definite to return for this one. Look at Dean. Andre Gomes could get his first start. He came back last week against Arsenal, played as a substitute for the final half an hour. I think showed what Everton's been missing, because that is, as well as they've done since Ancelotti came in, that central midfield's really, it's been a problem position when he's been out. So Ancelotti said he's much closer to starting than he was last week. Said he's even ready to start, but he would make a late check with the player to make sure he's up for it. We've covered Liverpool, Man United, Newcastle. Kieran Clark looks like he's going to be out for much of the rest of the season, if not all of it. He's got ankle ligaments issues, so he might need surgery on that. Andy Carroll, surprise, still out, along with the longer-term ones like Willems and Dummett. Shelby and Mankiw are back in training, though, so they could bolster the options in their respective positions. I think Mankiw could come straight in at right back because Lazaro is suspended. Shelby, I think we've been missing him in the middle of the park. goal count without him has really struggled. And Bruce has hinted that he could change things around. So he's played this 5-4-1 or 3-4-3 majority of the season, emulating Benitez's tactics. But there's been some disquiet amongst the Newcastle fans about the lack of goals. He himself, I think, wants to move away from it. It's just the players that have been used to playing in a wing-back system. So he's hinting that they might change shape this weekend, which could be a back four, which might open things up a bit for Burnley. Norwich, Sam Byram's going to be out for the rest of the season. I think we knew that last week as well. Onel Hernandez is going to be sidelined for at least 8 weeks following knee surgery. So that's one of Cantwell's positional rivals. That's good news for him. Zimmerman won't feature for this game week 28 game against Leicester. So that's good news for the likes of Vardy, I would suggest. Because, we saw last week that Godfrey and Lewis both came in from the cold. And Norwich actually have been pretty good recently in terms of the defensive displays. They frustrated Liverpool quite a bit in that match, but they were really wide open against Wolves for majority of that game. So let's hope that continues tonight as a Vardy owner. Watford, we heard about yesterday. No absentees, actually. No definite absentees. Jan Matt has just joined training after, I think, 3 months out. So that'd be a big ask for him to start. Kiko Firmino is available, but wasn't match ready, according to Pearson, for the Man United game. He could come back into contention here if he's proved his fitness in the last week. And Ismail Assar, I think Pearson said, was much closer to a start because, again, he returned from injury last week at Old Trafford, played the last 20 minutes or so against Man United. So he could be close to coming in for that one. And I think that leaves us with West Ham and Wolves. We haven't discussed yet. So West Ham, Fredericks is out for 6 weeks after surgery. Thomas Souček's out as well. He's a new signing. Played quite well, I think, in the little I've seen of him. Yarmolenko was not quite ready to return, despite having a practice match. And Wilshere is Jack Wilshere. He's out for the majority of the season, I think. Which leaves, Wolves. So I don't know if we really discussed them yet. They, again, like Man United, didn't have a standalone press conference for Game Week 28. We're just making use of what Nuno said last night, which was very little, really. Of what I've seen, of course, there might be quotes leaked out after the deadline, which is absolutely no use to us. But you often get this with this being a Sunday game, that the embargoed quotes from that might not come out until after the deadline. But we do know that Johnny was their only real concern of note. He was substituted in the win over Norwich with I think what Sam said was a strong kick, which I think translates as a knock. I think he's improving, but they're still sort of 50-50 on whether they will be back for that. So, it could be Ruben Vinagre, who's, I think, 4.2 in FPL now. He's a potential bargain, but possibly just a short-term one because I don't think Johnny's going to be out for too long. The fact that Vinagre was substituted in, I think, on the hour against Espanyol on Thursday, perhaps points to him starting. So, the Wolves team news is less about the injuries and more about which formation he's going to pick, because that might hinge on whether Traore is going to start. We saw him benched last week and the week before, possibly for different reasons. He had been struggling with a shoulder problem before that. Now this time, Wolves have changed shape to this 3-5-2 from the 3-4-3 that they played for much of the season, which doesn't really leave a lot of room for Traore, because Jota and Jimenez are the two up top, and Doherty is the right wing back in that system. Now he could feature at the expense of Doherty. That has happened earlier in the campaign when Doherty wasn't quite fit. And he could play as part of the front two, but I doubt very much that he's going to usurp Jimenez and Jota up front, given the form they're in, especially Jota. So, no guarantees at all that Traore gets his place back for this one. And he did play, I think, was it 72 minutes?
78.
It was
78.
78, was it?
I happened to check it earlier. Yeah, I just happened to check it for my own transfer reasons. So, I think it's almost there's no chance that Jimenez and Jota miss out after being. I mean, Jota got a full rest, didn't he? And Jimenez was on the bench. I don't even know if he came on.
No, only used.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think it's kind of wishful thinking that he's going to start this week. I mean, maybe a 3-4-3 might work better against Spurs, having that kind of pace and Jimenez and Jota on the pitch, potentially. But I just think longer term, you're always now going to have these concerns. It's just the only slight kind of maybe doubt for getting rid of him is, I think the game he missed 2 games ago, he wasn't long back from that shoulder injury, so that might have had something to play with it. But then they switched 3-5-2. Jota suddenly does really well. Maybe he just sticks with that now. So yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, do you own Traore?
I don't know. I own Jimenez, which is probably the safer bet. It's the problem is that Yotta's performed so well centrally in a 3-5-2. I think if he had a bit of a stinker, then he would have, Santa would have gone back to the 3-4-3. But yeah, I think Yotta plays better in a 3-5-2, and Traore obviously plays better in a 3-4-3. So it might be just a horses for courses thing. He might change on a weekly basis. You're right to point out that 3-4-3 might be better against Spurs because they've played that, I think, in the reverse fixture, and Traore was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, scored that
really
day, 3 bonus as well.
Yeah, tore Spurs apart. Spurs are really lucky to win that. So that is your glimmer of hope, I think, if you're a Traore owner. If Santo tries to emulate that, but yeah, he has gone to a 3-5-2 ever since I think midway through the first leg of the Espanyol game, and even played with that on Thursday night as well with Traore as one of the two strikers. So
I think that puts more doubt in my mind, the fact that he stuck to 3-5-2 and just stuck him up front. And like you said, I don't think Doherty just looks so good at the moment. And like I said, he wasn't fully fit at the start of the season, which probably explains some of that rotation. So I think I own him. I might actually keep him, but that's just because I've got Mahrez I can get rid of instead.
Yeah.
But I think it's probably wishful thinking to think he starts. All right, last two things I'll ask you about. What transfer are you looking at doing? If it's Martial, are you just going straight to Fernandes? And captaincy for this week?
I think you ask me about my team every week, and I probably give the impression that I've got a clue what I'm doing because most of my decisions, I'm a bit like if everyone's ever seen the Meet the Manager with Tom Freeman, he leaves these decisions till the Friday, and I've always been that. I've always accumulated all the information throughout the week. I haven't really bothered with price changes, sometimes to my expense, and then left it late. Now I'm leaving it really late this week, but yeah, I'll be planning on logging off not too soon and taking a good look at it. At the moment, I mean, originally my idea was to get Mane in for De Bruyne, actually, but there's so many doubts now about whether Man City's going to have a double game week 29. De Bruyne's on penalties. Do I even want to make another move back for De Bruyne for like a double and possibly game week 30 as well? Grealish is someone that I thought we're getting rid of, but again, he might have a fixture on game week 31. There's a lot I think of in the next 3 hours. My captaincy is on Salah right now. If I had Mane, I'd be tempted to switch to him. You mentioned about Milner being out, and Watford I think have conceded the most fouls this season, or joint highest number. And I think Norwich has conceded more penalties, so that's what's maybe tempting me to leave it on Salah for now.
Yeah, and the honeymoon period for them looks over as well. Like the third highest amount of shots
goals as well.
Yeah, nine in the last 4 or something like that. I'm also going Salah. I've actually got Firmino. There's a little part of me tempted because he is due a goal. Like I just think not only does he have the underlying stats, but I've watched him play the last 2 games. He's been unlucky not to score, but it's just going against Salah just seems wrong. And for transfer, I know the double game week is potential, but we just, a lot of the people that think it's kind of likely for next week also think if it was going to happen it would probably be announced before the deadline. So I don't know, I'm just going to wait and see. I'm literally I should say now we're going to actually do Breakfast Club as kind of dinner supper club tonight instead over the deadline, so I'm going to save my transfer till then. I'm probably going to do Traore to Barnes or Mahrez to Barnes because I just want a Leicester player. I like Harvey Barnes, and then captaincy will stick to Salah because I just don't have the balls to go for Firmino. So yeah, that's me. All right, we'll leave it there because there's loads more stuff to do before the deadline. As always, any more team news will be on the site under the team news section, all the predicted lineups, any news via Twitter as well. So keep an eye out for all that good stuff from Neale. Otherwise, we will catch you same time next week. Thanks a lot, Neale.
No bother, Andy. Good luck, everybody.
See you later, all.